The night he showed up at the hospital, I was already 20 minutes late getting off my shift. I had 3 patients left to check on. A pile of discharge paperwork sitting on the nurse's station counter, and my feet were doing that thing where they'd gone past hurting into something closer to numb. 12 hours on the cardiac floor will do that to you. I'd stopped noticing it around month 4 of working there. By month 14, it was just Tuesday. I heard the elevator doors open at the end of the hallway and didn't look up. People come and go in hospitals at all hours. That's the thing about working nights. You stop registering strangers. Everyone is a stranger. You just check their wristband and move on, but I knew his walk. I don't know how to explain that except to say that when you spend 3 years living with someone, your body memorizes things your brain would rather forget, the particular rhythm of his steps, the way he always led slightly with his right shoulder. I knew it before I saw him, and my hand stopped moving across the clipboard. There she is, my ex said. His name was Troy. We'd been broken up for 4 months. The first month, he called me 7 times a day. The second month, he started showing up at my apartment building, standing in the parking lot, not doing anything, just standing there. I called the police twice. Both times, by the time they arrived, he was gone. The officer who took my report the second time told me, gently but clearly, that standing in a parking lot wasn't a crime. I'd changed my schedule twice since then. Asked the charge nurse to keep my name off the public directory. Told the front desk not to give out any information about staff working the floor. I thought I'd been careful. I hadn't been careful enough. You need to leave, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I was proud of that even then. I just want to talk. He took a step closer. He was smiling the way he used to smile when he thought he was being charming. One side of his mouth, head tilted. I used to think that smile was warm. I hadn't thought so in a long time. 5 minutes, Vera. That's all. I'm at work. You can't be here. I'm visiting a friend. I have every right to be on this floor. That was Troy, always with an answer. Always one step ahead of the obvious boundary, technically on the right side of the line, legally speaking, while making every cell in your body understand exactly how much danger you were in. I'd spent the last 4 months telling people that and watching their faces do the math and come up with, well, has he actually done anything? I kept my voice even. Then, go visit your friend. He didn't move. I was very aware of the nurse's station behind me, of the fact that my coworker Devin had stepped into the medication room 3 minutes ago and hadn't come back yet, of the fact that the hallway was empty except for us. I've been thinking about you, he said. He took another step. I know I said things. I know Troy, made mistakes, but if you would just, Troy, I need you to stop walking toward me. He didn't stop. What happened next took about 4 seconds, but I've replayed it so many times since that it feels much longer. His hand closed around my upper arm, not gently. He pulled me toward him and said something low, something meant only for me, and I went cold all the way through, not from fear exactly, but from recognition. I'd heard that tone before. It was the voice he used when he'd already decided how this was going to go. Then a door opened behind him. Room 412. I knew the room because I'd checked on the patient in it twice that night. He'd been admitted 2 days ago with chest palpitations, and was scheduled for a stress test in the morning. He was a private patient. Private as in he had his own security preferences and his own intake paperwork and his own very particular instructions about which staff were authorized to enter his room. He'd been quiet, polite. Tipped the evening aide $20 for bringing him an extra blanket, which no one does. He stepped into the hallway and looked at us. He was taller than I'd registered when I'd checked his vitals. Broader. He was wearing a dark sweater, and he was calm. Completely, unnervingly calm. In the way that some people are calm when they're deciding something, rather than when nothing is wrong. His eyes went from my face to Troy's hand on my arm, and he didn't say anything for a moment. Troy looked over his shoulder. Let go of me. Not because he wanted to, but because you don't not let go when someone looks at you that way. Is there a problem here? The patient asked. No problem, Troy said. Private conversation. She doesn't look like she wants to have it. Troy drew himself up. He was good-looking, Troy, broad-shouldered, confident in the way men are confident when they've always gotten away with things. This is between me and my girlfriend. We broke up 4 months ago, I said. And I don't know why I said it to this stranger in the hallway instead of to Troy, except that it felt important that someone hear it stated plainly. The patient looked at me, not with pity. I want to be specific about that because I hate pity, but with something more careful, like he was taking stock. "I'll need you to step away from her," he said to Troy. "And who exactly are you?" There was a pause, the kind of pause that has weight. Someone who asked you a simple question. Troy laughed, that short dismissive laugh he used when he wanted to make someone feel small. "Right. Okay." He looked back at me. "We're not done, Vera." He walked toward the elevator. He didn't run. Troy never ran from anything, because running would mean he'd been made to leave, and Troy never let himself be made to do anything. He left like it was his idea. He pressed the elevator button. He waited. He stepped in. The doors closed. I stood in the hallway, and my hands were shaking. I hadn't noticed that until the threat was gone. That's how it works, apparently. Your body waits until it's safe to fall apart. "Are you all right?" the patient asked. "Yes." I straightened. I was still holding the clipboard. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "I apologize if he disturbed. Don't apologize." I looked up at him. Up close, in the flat fluorescent light of the hospital corridor, he looked older than his chart, mid-40s maybe. Dark hair going silver at the temples. A scar along the left side of his jaw that hadn't been there when whoever took his intake photo had taken it. There was something about him that didn't quite fit in a hospital gown and non-slip socks. I'd had that feeling before, when I checked his vitals the first time, and I'd filed it away somewhere and kept moving. "You should go back to your room," I said. "You shouldn't be up walking." I heard raised voices. "We have raised voices on this floor sometimes. It's a hospital." I was aware I was being shorter with him than was professional. "I'm sorry. Thank you. Really. I need to finish my shift." He nodded once and went back inside. I stood in the hallway for another minute. Then I went back to the nurse's station and finished the discharge paperwork, because what else do you do? Devin found out, of course. Hospitals have their own information ecosystem. Nothing stays private for long when 12 people work the same floor. By the time I came back from my break, he'd already heard a version of it. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine. I heard some guy." "I'm fine, Devin." He handed me a coffee and didn't push it, which was why Devin was one of my favorite people on that floor. I didn't think about room 412 again until the next night, when I came back for my shift and the charge nurse mentioned that the patient in 412 had put in a specific request. "He wants you to be his primary nurse for the rest of his stay," she said. I set down my bag. "Me specifically?" He was very specific. I told him assignments are based on patient load and I can't guarantee. She shrugged. "He said he understood and he'd appreciate it if you had the time." He was sitting up in bed when I came in, reading something on a tablet. He set it down when the door opened. "I didn't realize we were on request terms," I said. "I hope that's all right. It's unusual." I checked the monitors. "What's your pain level?" 3, honesty scale, not bravery scale. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close to 1. 4. Okay. I'll adjust the notes. I made a notation. "Did you eat this morning?" "Some of it. Hospitals get a bad reputation. The food is actually edible." "It's edible," he agreed. "In the way that things you're not choosing freely are always less enjoyable." I looked at him. "You can leave whenever you want. The doctor recommended you stay for observation, but you can sign a waiver." "I know." He paused. "I'm not in a hurry." I wasn't sure what to do with that, so I finished the assessment and turned to go. "Vera," he said. I stopped. I hadn't told him my name. It wasn't on my badge. I wore my first initial only. Policy for night staff. "How do you know my name?" "Your colleague used it last night in the hallway." "Devin." He must have said something when he'd come out of the medication room after the fact. I turned back around. "What's yours?" I asked. "Vincent," he said. "Just that. No last name." I noticed he didn't offer one. He stayed for 6 days. The cardiologist wanted to monitor an arrhythmia that had been irregular. Nothing immediately dangerous, but something that needed watching. I was his nurse for 4 of those 6 days, and somewhere in that time, our check-ins stopped feeling entirely clinical. He asked questions, not intrusive ones. Not about Troy, not about my personal life, but the kind of questions that people ask when they're actually curious. What made me choose cardiac care? Whether I'd grown up in the city. What I did on the days between my shifts. He listened like he was storing the answers somewhere. I asked him questions back, because I'm not one-sided about that sort of thing. He was careful. He said he was in real estate. He said he had business in the city. When I asked where he was from, he said he'd been a lot of places, and left it at that. On the fourth day, Devin pulled me aside. "Do you know who that is?" he whispered. "The patient in 412? Vincent Kane." I waited. Devin lowered his voice further. "Vera. Vincent Kane. His father built half the waterfront development on the south side before he died." "The Kane Group?" "They're in construction, real estate, a dozen other things." He paused significantly. "A dozen other things? What does that mean?" "It means the two guys in suits who've been sitting in the visitors' lounge since Tuesday aren't there for the vending machine." I looked down the hall at the visitors' lounge. He was right. I'd noticed the men. You notice everything on a night shift. But I'd assumed they were family members of another patient. "You're telling me I'm telling you the Kane Group has had federal attention for about 15 years, and nothing has ever stuck." Devin raised his eyebrows. "That's all I'm telling you. I didn't say anything about it when I went back to room 412. I took his vitals. I adjusted his IV. He watched me with that same careful attention he always had." "You're quieter today," he said. "Long week. How's the situation with the man from the hallway?" I stilled. "That's not really. I'm not asking to be intrusive. I'm asking because I'd like to know you're safe." Something about the directness of it caught me. No performance of concern. Just a straight statement. "I filed for a restraining order yesterday," I said. "Officially. In writing. I should have done it sooner." I'd finally done it. Sitting at my kitchen table at 7 in the morning after a night shift, hands still tired, filling out the paperwork online, and then going down to the courthouse in person because I needed someone to stamp the physical copy, and I needed to watch them do it. "The process takes a few weeks," he nodded. "But that's my problem," I said. "Not yours. It doesn't have to be only yours." I looked at him. He wasn't performing sympathy. He was just saying a fact. "You don't know me," I said. "I know some things," he said. "I know you check your patients twice when you're worried about them. I know you don't like people apologizing to you when they should be accepting your apology instead. I know you took this shift because the premium pay helps with something. Student loans, probably, based on the stress around the 14th of every month that I've observed in enough nurses to recognize it." He paused. "And I know that man had your arm last week and you were frightened, and you didn't show it, and you shouldn't have had to." The room was quiet. The monitors beeped their steady rhythms. "I graduated with $140,000 in debt," I said finally. "So that part's right." I was close. "Very presumptuous of you." "Yes," the corner of his mouth moved. "I'm often presumptuous." He was discharged on a Thursday morning. I wasn't on shift. I came in that evening and found the room empty, the bed remade, the monitors dark. There was a note at the nurse's station. "For the night staff, thank you." Below it was an envelope containing gift cards to the coffee place across the street, one for each member of the team, $200 each. Devin held his up and looked at me. "Real estate," I said. "Uh-huh." I went home. I slept. I did 3 shifts in a row after that, the way you do when you're trying to outrun your own thoughts. And I told myself it was fine, that I'd probably never see him again, because it was fine, and people come in and out of hospital rooms and you care for them, and then they go. And that's the job. That's what it's supposed to be. Troy called me on a Tuesday, from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. He called twice more that week from different numbers. I added them all to my blocked list and forwarded the log to the officer handling my restraining order case. On Friday, I came home from my shift at 7 in the morning and found Troy sitting on the hood of my car in the parking garage. "My building has a security gate. You need a key card to enter." He'd followed someone else in. I learned this later from the security footage, walking close enough behind them that the gate registered as one entry. I stopped when I saw him. The garage was mostly empty. There were 3 cars between us. "You changed your number," he said. "I just wanted to talk." "You need to leave," I said. "I have a restraining order in process. It's not finalized yet." He smiled. I know how these things work, Vera. He slid off the hood, and I felt it then, something I'd been trying not to feel for months, because feeling it meant admitting how serious this was. Real fear. Not the vague background dread I'd been carrying, but something sharp and present. He took a step toward me. A car door opened. I hadn't registered the black SUV parked near the entrance pillar. It was the kind of car that blends into parking garages. Dark, anonymous, nothing notable about it. But the door opened and one of the men I recognized from the hospital visitors' lounge stepped out and stood there, not saying anything, not moving, just standing. Troy stopped. Another door opened on the other side. "I think," said a voice from behind me, "this would be a good time for you to go." I turned around. Vincent was standing 5 feet away. He was in a dark jacket. He looked like himself, like the version of himself I'd seen in a hospital room, but without the constraints of it. Troy looked between us. Something shifted in his expression. Whatever calculation he'd been running, the numbers had changed. "Who are you?" Troy said. But his voice wasn't right. The confidence had gone thin. "Someone she knows," Vincent said. "And now someone you know." Troy stood very still for a moment. Then he looked at me. Then he walked to his car, a car I hadn't noticed him come in with, parked near the exit. And he got in and he drove away. I stood in the parking garage and didn't move. "How did you know where I lived?" I asked. "You mentioned your building once," Vincent said. "Near the South Park and the coffee shop with the green awning." I had mentioned that, offhand, describing a morning walk. "You remembered that. I remember most things." I turned to look at him. In the flat concrete light of the garage, he looked exactly the same as he had in the hospital. Watchful, careful, still in a way that had weight to it. "Are you having me followed?" I asked. "No." "Then why are you in my parking garage?" He paused. It was the first pause I'd heard from him that felt anything other than deliberate. "I had someone keeping an eye on the building," he said. "As a precaution, after what I saw in the hospital. I was told he'd come back. That's..." I searched for the word. "That's not nothing, Vincent." "No," he said. "It's not. You can't just..." I stopped. I thought about Troy's voice in the hallway, about the way his hand had felt on my arm, about every time in the last 4 months that I'd checked my rearview mirror and calculated how fast I could get inside before someone came up behind me. You can't just decide to do something like that without asking. "You're right," he said. "I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "All right. Should I be more afraid of you than I was of him?" He held my gaze. "That's a fair question." "I know it is. Answer it." A long pause. "The people who know me," he said carefully, "the people I'm responsible for are safe. That's not nothing either." It wasn't a no. I noticed that. But it also wasn't a deflection. It was the most honest non-answer I'd ever heard, and I'd been working in a field that ran on careful language for 14 years. "You should have asked me," I said. "Yes, if anything like this happens again, anything." "You ask first." He looked at me for a long moment. "Agreed." I thought about walking away. I thought about it seriously. There's a version of this story where I went upstairs, called my sister in Portland, and told her I was thinking of transferring to a hospital in a different city. There's a version where I made the smart, clean, uncomplicated choice. Instead, I said, "There's a diner across the street. It opens at 7:30. He looked at his watch. 12 minutes. I know. I'm exhausted and I smell like disinfectant, and this is probably a terrible idea." "Probably," he agreed. "But I'd like to have breakfast with someone who's going to tell me the truth, even when the truth is inconvenient." I looked at him. "Can you do that?" "I can try," he said. "That's the best I can offer." "Okay." I started toward the garage exit. "Then try." He fell into step beside me. We walked out of the concrete dark and into the early morning, the city just beginning to wake up around us. The coffee shop on the corner already lit from inside. Someone turning the sign from closed to open in the window as we came up the block. He held the diner door open. I walked through it. That's the thing about the worst moments of your life. Sometimes they're the hinge everything else turns on, not because they were good. They weren't. But because of what they forced you toward. A hallway at 2 a.m. A man stepping out of a room he had no reason to step out of. A choice made in a parking garage in a city just gray with early light. You don't get to pick the moments that change you. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to choose what you do with them after.